Good morning and welcome to the second 15-minute parent forum, which is detailing how you can try and keep your child focused and organised during remote learning. Thank you to everyone that watched yesterday's video and sent in some comments. Please do that. If you've got any questions, please feel free to click the link at the bottom of the video and I'll be able to get back to you as soon as possible. This video is part of a series of three, which is really on how you can work with your child at home if you're working during the day at home, or if you're coming home from your work as a key worker, how you can support them best. So the first thing to say is that we are dealing with lots of different kinds of students during this particular lockdown, and because there's changes of key workers as well, we're generally defining students into three different categories. So students who have their parents at home or have one parent at home, students who have no parents at home whilst they're working. So students are seen first thing in the morning and then seen in the evening. And then we have border and critical worker children. The purpose of this particular talk is for parents who are in those first two categories. And I don't actually know, because I don't have a child who's at secondary school level, but it must have been very frustrating in the first lockdown, having to do your jobs as well as going through work from the students. And so the idea behind this particular talk is to talk about strategies which are low energy, high reward. And these next three 50-minute parent forums are designed to go through how you can best support your child at home if you're with them during the day, or if you're with them in an evening or first thing in the morning. So let's try and think about what the main problems students are facing at the moment in this period of national lockdown and remote learning. Firstly, there's a lack of social contact with their peer group, and you could add as well to that there's a lack of social contact with their teachers. There are technical issues which can be on their control. There's limited continual feedback, which is only available in a classroom setting. So when a teacher passes, quick glance at the work, over online, it's very difficult to do that on a continual basis. So it's more summative assessments. And then also digital fatigue. Students are remote learning, so they're looking at a computer most of the time, and it might be the case that they're starting to become demotivated around this particular week. Now this is our third week of remote learning. So those are things that I've tried to consider when devising these particular talks. And the next three 15-minute forums are going to focus in on three different areas that you can improve and help and support your child at home. So today I'm going to be looking at providing discipline and structure, which will help with focus and organisation. Next week, so next Wednesday, is going to be on motivation, so how you can act as Mr. Motivator at home. And then next Thursday is looking after your child's mental well-being during this period and offering maternalistic and paternalistic support. So that's next Thursday. So for those parents that are have their students in school because they're either boarding or they're critical worker children, OSH is aiming to provide structure during the day by sticking to the timetable. So when students come in, they stick to the timetable. There's teachers there, and science is maintained. And if there's any questions, we can help out and we can support. At home, that's very difficult. It's not the same sort of environment. You have your own jobs to do, and students might be working upstairs. You're working in your own study or downstairs or in a different room. So I just wanted to go through ways in which you can support them, which is going to be low effort on your end. So firstly, OSH is aiming to provide structure with its Teams lessons. So Teams has a calendar function. On that calendar are the students' timetables. So students are expected to follow their timetable during the day, and that in itself will provide structure. So it's a start time of 8:30, it's a finish time of 3:45. So that structure in itself, that's one of the reasons why we have adopted this Teams approach. With being a disciplinarian, there is a tendency to think that This is about shouting and screaming, and this is in all forms of coaching and teaching. And really, that's not what discipline actually means. You know, we pride ourselves at OSH and we talk about providing discipline and structure to the students. That shouldn't be seen as a negative thing at all, and we need to get out of that mindset. Instead, being disciplined or being a disciplinarian is looking for preventative ways for students to go off task, looking for supportive ways that we can motivate them during the day, and we can make sure that they don't fall into bad habits. And then, as a last resort, being corrective. And actually, therefore, being a disciplinarian shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. It shouldn't have negative connotations that are attached to it. So I'm going to go through some strategies that you can use now. So when we're talking about a preventative way of students going off task and losing focus and not being organised, the most important thing, in my experience, is sleep. Good sleep has a huge impact on a child's focus and attention during the day. If they've had a good night's sleep, then they're going to be more refreshed, and they should be seeing their minds much like their bodies. If you're going for a run, you've got to recuperate, you've got to let your muscles re-energize before you then do exercise again. And likewise, you know, students should be seeing their brains in the same way. Brains are a complex organ, but they do include muscle, and there's plenty of evidence to support the point that if you have a good night's sleep and you have plenty of deep sleep, then you will be far more refreshed, energized, and active, and therefore focused during the day. If you are interested, there's some great research that's been done by the University of Surrey that I'd really recommend you can have a look at, and I'll provide the link in the description section of the YouTube video. So I've just provided a few basic pictures that summarize some of the main points on how to get a good night's sleep. Firstly, have a routine. So there is a bedtime, there is a wake time. Having that scheduled in can really help the body adjust. Having variable times and doing different things on different days won't help that particular process. So, for example, I've got a newborn at home at the moment. I have no schedule, no calendar. I'm incredibly tired all the time, and my sleep has really been affected, and that has affected my concentration during the day. There's plenty of evidence to suggest types of foods that are really good for helping promote deep sleep. So things like milk, white meat, bananas, they're very good at promoting deep sleep. Caffeine shouldn't really be consumed past 3 p.m. That will affect the sleep in that particular night. If you look at the top right, having zero distractions around the bed, things like alarm clocks, Alexas, phones, anything that isn't promoting sleep in that particular area should be removed. Things like books are particularly good because, again, reading helps tire the eyes out, and as a consequence, sleep can be gained much quicker. Phones aren't good after a certain period of time. That blue light that's emitted from phones obviously is designed to keep people staying alert and focused. I'll put my hand up and say I'm very guilty of that. I'll look at my phone at night, and that obviously won't help matters as well. I don't know if you know the analogy of a snake at the bottom. There's a thing in Harry Potter where he teaches Harry to do this thing called occlumency, where he's blocking things out of his mind and trying to clear his thoughts. That's a good strategy to use before you go to sleep. Again, if you look at the University of Surrey link, they've got some helpful suggestions on how to do that. Napping is not a good idea. It doesn't help students, particularly teenage years. It breaks the circadian rhythm, and as a consequence, it's not advised. And then finally, I just found that picture of Trump reading the book quite funny, to be honest. There are strategies that are quite good for going to sleep. So reading a book, for example, before you go to bed is really good, like I've said. Having a bath or a shower to raise the body temperature, again, helps deep sleep during that particular night. So these are just some strategies, but this is a preventative way of students losing focus during the day. A good night's sleep is incredibly important. And joining in with the students in some of those habits and talking about those habits hopefully will be a way in which they can be re-energized during the day. Being supportive during the day is how you can make sure that they're working in an effective study space environment. So I'm just going to give 8 different examples, 8 things that they can do and that you can do to support them. So firstly, I would suggest finding their spot and trying to stick to that spot during the day, so making it their own. The problems with bedrooms and working is that there can be other distractions that are there. So if there's a guitar, if there's another musical instrument, if there's an Xbox, there's a physical thing there that, oh, I can do that for 5 minutes or so. If we can try and divide up the working area from the social area, if it's possible, then that would be far more advantageous. Secondly, you can keep distractions at bay. There's some amazing apps that you can find. That's the point of that particular diagram. So you'll try and find out what that image is for. It's an iPhone app called Self-Control. Type it in and have a look. But you can have apps for phones where it essentially blocks you doing anything for a certain period of time. Now it can be quite tricky because we're saying Microsoft Teams, so sometimes the students will use that for the chat function. The good thing about things like Self-Control is it can block certain apps. So it could block access to things like Facebook, WhatsApp, Snapchat, that sort of thing. Thirdly, getting comfy. This is something that I had to do, obviously, with remote learning as well, and I'm sure you've had to do. Having a poor chair at home, it's making you uncomfortable. You then have to walk around. If we are going to be working like this for a little bit of time, if there's a comfier chair rather than a hardback chair, then that will obviously be better. Plenty of natural light is important, so that image on the right-hand side of the screen, the dark and dingy desk, that's not going to be advantageous in the long run. So again, plenty of studies to suggest that if you're using artificial light over a prolonged period of time, attention and focus during the day isn't going to be helpful. So plenty of natural light, going outside in the garden or outside onto the street, just to get some natural light in, again, is a really good idea. Music is not a friend. The evidence suggests that it reduces productivity by about 16%. We can't multitask as humans. We can do 2 or 3 tasks at the same time, but our productivity reduces. So if a student is listening to music as well as working, well, they're doing 2 things, and therefore they're doing both of those things not to a very high level. They're not listening to that music very well, and they're not listening to potentially their lesson or doing their work to the best of their ability. Things like white noise can be quite good, but the evidence and the research is fairly variable on that. So I would always say music, noise are things that should be avoided. Personalised work areas as well. The students really should be taking ownership of the area around them, turn it into almost an office space. I'm currently doing this video from one of my offices at work, and the person who's in an office next to me, Mrs. Weston, she's been commenting on how poorly my desk has been organised. So that's something that I've had to rectify. And since I've rectified it, I actually do genuinely feel a lot better about coming into my office space. It does feel a lot cleaner, tidier, and something that I've got ownership of. Keeping supplies close to hand, pens, pencils, rulers, staplers, whatever they are, rather than having to walk around the house, knowing where they are, it saves time during the day looking for those particular pieces of equipment. And finally, maintaining standards. Having a starting point in the day, having an end point, having a time for cleaning and tidying up working areas, maintaining high standards is important at home. And as parents, if you are away from home during the day, it's always possible to send them a text message or give them a ring or send a reminder, which you can pre-populate, just to go through some of those things, and also just to say how are things going during the day. It may be the case, however, and I think it's completely understandable at the moment, that students are finding everything a bit too much. It's not what they're used to with the school, and they've done this for quite a long period of time now, and they might be becoming desensitized and demotivated. We're trying our best to obviously avoid that particular area, but it may be the case that we need to intervene, and there might be some things that we need to change. Corrective discipline is a last resort, and what I would say importantly is that if you are finding things really difficult at home, to motivate your child, keeping them focused. You've done those things, and still there are problems. Just ask for help. You know, we are a phone call away. We are trying to ring as many students as possible in the next 2 weeks or so, sending emails, keeping in contact via Teams, via lesson. But ask, please, if you have any issues or any problems. I hope that's been of use to you. It's gone just over the 15-minute mark, and if you have any questions, please have a look at the link at the bottom of the screen, and I'll be able to get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you very much.